Hey, Water Smarts Podcast listeners, we got a special one for you here today. The general manager for the Southern Nevada Water Authority, John Entsminger, recently sat down with the CEO of the Suffolk County Water Authority. That's in Long Island, New York, Jeff Sabo. And Jeff hosts a podcast very much like we do here. It's called What About Water? So general manager for the Water Authority, John Entsminger, appeared on the podcast with Jeff. They have a little bit of conversation about drought, conservation, really kind of juxtaposing water resource management here in the West with what they do back east. And really what you find, there's a lot of similarities. We are seeing conservation spreading throughout the country. So even East Coast water providers are focused on conservation. They have watering restrictions on Long Island, just like we have here in Las Vegas, though a little bit different. Still, that same ethic of conservation really permeating throughout the country. This is a good example of that. And one more thing. We are on track, Southern Nevada, to have our lowest water use year since 1993. We are talking about 3 decades ago, water use today being less than what it was 30 years ago. Meanwhile, our population has ballooned since that time. So it just shows the value of conservation and managing water resources. Keep conserving Southern Nevada. Enjoy this special episode of the Water Smarts Podcast and listen to What About Water? You can find the What About Water podcast on all your favorite podcast formats. Without further ado, hope you enjoy this conversation.
Summer is over, and for the second year in a row, Long Island experienced a significant drought. In fact, since just 2016, Long Island has experienced 5 summer droughts. And with climate change, we could see even more in the future. That means residents fighting against nature to keep their gardens blooming and their grass green with huge amounts of lawn watering. Hi, I'm Jeff Sabo, CEO of the Suffolk County Water Authority, and this is What About Water? Today we're talking about droughts, long periods of dry weather that leave our lawns scorched and keep our sprinklers running. While droughts aren't uncommon on Long Island, our plentiful reserves of water leave us in a very different position than other parts of the country. So we're going to take a look westward to Las Vegas, Nevada, where drought and water availability are always at the top of mind. We'll find out just how different Long Island is when it comes to drought struggles and if there are any lessons to be learned from the West. Joining me today is John Entsminger, General Manager of the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Jeff. Good to see you.
Yep, good to see you. Thank you very much. You've been a leader in the drinking water industry for many years now, certainly in your role in Nevada and nationally, too. So hearing your thoughts about what you do and how well you do it and the challenges you face, hopefully is going to be an interesting conversation for our listeners.
Yeah, well, I definitely think we can, juxtapose some differences between the East and West and maybe let some people know what's going on.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I have 65 trillion gallons of water below our feet here on Long Island that's sitting there in an aquifer that I may want to sell you.
Well, I'd be interested in talking about that, but it's the transportation costs.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk a little bit about it, John. You've been with out west and certainly in Las Vegas in executive and leadership positions for many years now. You served as general manager for I think almost 10 years. Tell us about your organization and what you do and how it may differ from what we do here on Long Island.
Yeah, so I'm general manager for 2 different water utilities. The Southern Nevada Water Authority is the wholesale water provider, so we provide wholesale service to the cities, the counties, the water districts, totaling about 76% of the state of Nevada's population. So big pipes, big pumps, also handle all of the negotiations with the other 6 states that share the Colorado River, the federal government, and the country of Mexico. ago. And then on the other side is the Las Vegas Valley Water District, which is the largest member agency of the Water Authority and has about 70% of the retail. And that's probably a little bit more akin to, what you do on Long Island and providing retail service.
Right. That's we do a little bit of wholesale, but the overwhelming majority of the roughly 1.2 million people we serve are residential customers. A small percentage wholesale. You serve, I think it's about 2.5 million customers, but then there's another, 30, 40, 50 million visitors annually?
Yeah, that's right. So about 2.5 million in population, and I think this year we are going to pass the 50 million mark for visitors to the Las Vegas Strip. So, yeah, we have fun stuff like F1 is having a race here in November, and they want to do little things like pave over all of our valves that runs the water system for the Las Vegas Strip. So it's always something exciting. And then the Super Bowl in February. So, good stuff happening in Southern Nevada, but we're not without our challenges.
Yeah, and that's something I want to talk about. It continues to be certainly a period of tremendous growth. Here, New York, Long Island, we get all of our drinking water from the sole source aquifer, right beneath our feet, trillions of gallons of water. We pump it from the ground and distribute it to our customers. We have about 6,000 miles of water main and about 250 different locations where we pull water from. That's a little different, pull from the ground and then get it into the distribution system. That's a little different than what you do and the challenges you face. Where do you get your water from out in Nevada?
Yeah, so we get 90% of our water from the Colorado River. So the river originates, western Colorado, southern Wyoming, comes down to us through the Grand Canyon, and then with Hoover Dam right at our front door, we have a very large reservoir, right in our backyard, and that's where we pull 90% of our water supply from. The other 10% is actually, similar to what you do. It's all groundwater operations. On the retail side, we have about 80 production wells, but we also do some put and take. We can take water out of the river and inject it into the aquifer, and we've historically put about 330,000 acre feet of water into the aquifer here.
So can you describe to those who are listening to this who don't know what an acre was it acre foot, acre yard? What does that mean?
Yeah, and that's probably one of the distinctions between East and West. You guys talking, trillions of gallons or probably, a million gallons a day. We talk in acre feet, and it's it goes back to the settlement of the West. Mining law, an acre foot is enough water to flood 1 acre of land with 1 foot of water. It translates into about 326,000 gallons.
That I did not know that. That's great. I appreciate that explanation. I'm sure our listeners will too. You're facing some challenges. You certainly, and you're not new to challenges related to water availability. We've been talking quite a bit here this past summer about drought, and drought on Long Island certainly is different than drought in the community that you serve in Nevada. It's relatively new to us, but not necessarily new to you. Can you talk about some of the things that you've done over the years to try to address drought?
Sure. Well, for starters, drought here for us, it's been going on, basically since the turn of the century. The last, 23 years are the driest in the recorded history of the Colorado River. And it's basically gotten to the point where we don't really talk about drought anymore. We talk about aridification and the fact that the future is just going to be warmer and drier in the western U.S. But we have seen, 2002 was the driest year in recorded history. 2012, 2013 were the driest back-to-back years in recorded history, right up until 2020 and 2021 surpassed them. So that's resulted in, we came into the 21st century with 4 years of the total flow of the Colorado River in storage in Lake Mead and Lake Powell, and we're now sitting at about 34% combined storage between those two reservoirs. So really, had a huge impact on the water supply. And when you get 90% of your water from that source, it's obviously a big concern.
Yeah, I think the distinction is here on Long Island, we're trying to impress upon our customers to be good stewards. and the value of water, and to appreciate, though, although we have trillions of gallons beneath our feet, that doesn't mean that we should waste water, treated water, right? That we spend millions of dollars to treat to water their lawn. In over here on Long Island, everyone wants a green lawn. It's not uncommon throughout the world, but I think it may be in the water. Everybody wants green. They want a plush backyard. They want lots of growth. And what we're trying to do now, so we don't have issues long term, is that education and that outreach. It's a little different than the world that you live in, where this is real life. This is happening, and it's not new, but it's every day. You're living with the real possibility of shortages.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we are having this conversation today, we're under a declared shortage condition from the federal government. So our legal entitlement to how much water we can take out of the river has been reduced the last couple of years. So this is, this isn't game theory or some exercise we're going through. We're living it. But fortunately, our community has really stepped up to the plate and, frankly, led the world in urban water conservation. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about some of those specific steps, but we've shown that you can have a robust economy, a growing population, economic diversification, and simultaneously use a lot less water.
So I read a little bit about that. It looked like, if I recall correctly, Department of Interior declared, was it a stage 2 alert in August 2022?
Yeah, that's accurate. They always make the shortage declaration for the following year in August. So they've already said what our operating condition will be, in 2024 in last August. And we're moving back to a tier 1, which is better than tier 2, but still, going to be operating in a shortage condition for, the foreseeable future.
What does that mean in real life? What does that mean? How do things change from an operation perspective when you're dealing with existing customers and then potential new customers?
Yeah, well, fortunately, we've seen this coming, right? We do a 50-year resource plan every single year, so we always have a 5-decade, look at what the community's water resource portfolio looks like. And because we've consistently driven down our total consumptive use, those shortages is essentially a legal definition, right? So we're reduced from a 300,000 acre foot basic apportionment to a 275,000 acre foot apportionment, but this year it looks like we're going to use less than 200,000. So we actually have extra water that we can store in our aquifer bank in Lake Mead because our community has made such strong achievements in urban water conservation.
That's incredible. Yeah, I saw that you actually were under, I guess you're prescribed or allotted total. And I guess that says a lot about you and folks like you and the agencies you run, with making sure that you're doing the right thing and you're getting your customers to actually listen, and you're taking steps with incentives to try to stay below that requirement.
Yeah, well, it hasn't been easy. Our community, basically every sector of our community, has been asked to sacrifice. You talked about lawns on Long Island. I mean, we have a lot of people that moved here from the Northeast and the Midwest and the Southeast, and they wanted to bring that culture with them to the Mojave Desert. And it's just water we don't have to support those kind of lifestyles going forward. So we've actually now passed a state law banning the irrigation of what we refer to as non-functional turf, but it's essentially, grass outside of, say, yards, schools, parks, anything that's purely decorative. You're no longer allowed to use our water to irrigate that. We've limited pool sizes. We have a moratorium on evaporative cooling. We've done a number of other things, and when you add it all up, our population has more than tripled here since 1992, and this year we're on track to use less water in our community than we did in 1992. So none of this is easy, but it can be done with resources and political will.
I mean, that's very, very impressive. I know here we've ramped up rebates and credits to customer accounts to purchase smart controllers and rain sensors and low flow shower heads and things like that, which is, probably you did that probably 25 years ago, if not longer. We've instituted, without enforcement power, we've instituted an odd even watering schedule for the customers that we serve. I don't like not having enforcement power because I don't like doing things that you can't actually effectuate a change with. But we do think that it sets the right tone, and it begins that education with the customers, knowing this is our policy. We're voluntarily asking you to comply and to use your automated irrigation systems on certain days based on your house number and things like that. We have struggled with enforcement. We don't have the ability to drive the neighborhoods or impose fines to residential commercial customers to find out who may be watering when they shouldn't be. We've reached out to local municipalities to see if they want to help, whether it's the police department or village, public safety officers and things like that. But it's a real struggle. How do you enforce your restrictions? Do you have the power to do that, or do you involve the state legislature or law enforcement agencies?
Well, historically, we do. It sounds like we have more enforcement authority at the retail level in the Las Vegas Valley water districts through our service rules, right? So the board, 7 elected officials have to vote to change the service rules in order to mandate, day of week watering restrictions, and that was done, as you said, 20, 25 years ago. But because there are 7 member agencies of the Water Authority, it's always been important to us to have uniform application of the rules across jurisdictional lines. So any time in the past SNWA has, passed a requirement, all the member agencies put that into county code, city ordinances, water district service rules, and it's only been in the last 2 legislative sessions. Our legislature meets for 120 days every 2 years. It's a great system if you can talk your state into it. They've only in 2021 and 2023 have we used the state legislative process to get some additional authorities through. And that really was that non-functional turf and some emergency powers given the situation on the Colorado River.
Well, one of the things that we've tried most recently here on Long Island is a 2-tiered rate structure, where if you exceed a threshold in gallons per quarter, we bill quarterly, you would jump into a much higher rate category. And during the summer months, when people are filling pools and they're watering their lawn and things like that, about 30% of our customers the last couple of years have jumped into that rate. But we do think it's been an effective way to catch people's attention. It also is effective because it costs us millions and millions of dollars to bring the infrastructure to the communities for those high users. So the thought being we need to build, put in a 12-inch main and put in a booster system and, do things like that to make sure that you have water. You're going to pay for it. And it's starting to work. But it may not be as effective as we had hoped, because we're looking at a possible 3rd tier, a super user tier for both public and private entities that have geothermal systems that use and in some respects waste a lot of water. So we're trying to continue to move the ball down the field and be innovative.
A big distinction in our rate base, because you talked about your tiers. Our first tier, we call it our lifeline rate, and so for your first 5,000 gallons of water, we charge you $1.74 per 1,000 gallons, and that's specifically calculated to be enough to wash your dishes, do your laundry, take showers, enough for basic household needs, and then by the 4th tier, we're charging $5.75 a 1,000 gallons, and it costs us about $3.50 to move 1,000 gallons of water from the lake to a tap. And then the fifth tier is called the excess use charge, and that's a $9 per 1,000 gallon penalty if you go over the seasonal budget. So if you're a high volume user, at any time of the year and you're going over that seasonal budget, you're paying almost $15 per 1,000 gallons. So we have customers that pay $2,500, $3,000 a month for the really affluent areas of town.
That's absolutely incredible, and I appreciate the you elaborating on that a little bit. What are you looking at? Some innovative ideas for water reuse. I know you've been a leader with the Water Research Foundation for several years, and they've done a lot of great work in this respect. But what does the future look like in Nevada for a plentiful supply of drinking water?
Yeah, well, like I said, we do a 50-year resource plan every year, and we don't show a scenario where we don't have water in the next 50 years. So we're secure from that perspective. We have almost 100% indoor recycling in Southern Nevada, and that's because of our geographic proximity to Lake Mead. If it hits a drain in Southern Nevada, we treat it, we put it through green infrastructure called the Las Vegas Wash, and we've established some riparian habitat, some world-class wetlands that the water flows down back into Lake Mead, and for every gallon we put back in Lake Mead, we can take another gallon out. So our indoor use is essentially a closed loop. We only deplete water from the river system with outdoor irrigation and evaporative cooling, which is why we now have a moratorium on any new evaporative coolers going in down here. But that doesn't mean we're not interested in reuse. We're actually partnering with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California because they have a project called Pure Water, because most of the sewage effluent in coastal California, which is about 19 million people between Santa Barbara and San Diego, that water all gets discharged into the Pacific and is lost as a resource going forward. So they are going to spend about $4 billion to treat that water to an even higher standard than it's currently treated, distribute it through 4 different groundwater basins in Southern California and recharge the aquifer with the water, and then be able to pump that out, essentially through engineering and infrastructure, replicating the situation we have by being upstream of Hoover Dam. And my board's already appropriated $750 million for us to participate as a capital partner in that Pure Water project, and in return for our participation, California will leave a small piece of their Colorado River entitlement in Lake Mead for our use. And as you said, we've also done a lot of direct potable reuse research at our facilities at Lake Mead. So just because we don't need purple pipes doesn't mean we're not interested in helping other people build some.
We've been very fortunate here in applying for and being awarded grants, right, from the federal government, from the bipartisan infrastructure bill, from member item to direct funding. We, from New York State, has been aggressive with setting up a pool of money annually. So we've been deploying a lot of treatment to remove 1,4-dioxane and PFAS and PFOA, and we received millions and millions of dollars. It's been helpful because every dollar we get from the federal government, right, reduces the cost to our customers here. Talk to me a little bit about your, the support from the federal, state government in building out your infrastructure and doing treatment in Nevada.
Yeah, basically non-existent. We've paid for everything with local dollars, and in fact, very often, we've been asked to apply for state revolving, funds and things of that nature, and having to comply with, Davis-Bacon and all the, strings that come with federal money just very often isn't worth it for us. So we've had a, political class here that's been willing to set our water rates at a place where we can pay for billions of dollars worth of infrastructure, and, our community, more or less takes care of ourselves. And even after the tiered rates, our rates, without a vote, go up every year, tracking either CPI for retail stuff or the engineering news report index for our capital projects.
Impressive. You sound like somebody from the West. We've done it all ourselves. We don't need any assistance from the government. John, you've got a lot of certainly challenges. You're certainly, I think, exceeding standards. I know it's been fun a couple of times when I've been on the phone with you. I remember distinctly one time you said, "I'm sorry, Jeff, I got to go. I got the Secretary of Interior calling about our negotiation," or someone from the Department of Interior. And I said, "All right, this guy's pretty important. This guy's changing lives out west, and dealing with the officials at the extreme highest levels of government." And I think that you're vital to negotiating with the federal government. You play a large part in ensuring that the communities have drinking water. Talk to me a little bit about that, about the enormity of the responsibility of negotiating on behalf of the folks that you represent with the federal government. That must be a tremendous undertaking.
Yeah, it probably takes up, about a third, of my job, because in addition to being the general manager of two utilities, my third job is I'm the governor of Nevada's compact representative on the Colorado River. So each, the Colorado River is divided between 7 states. You have the upper basin of Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and New Mexico, and then you have the lower basin of Nevada, Arizona, and California. And in addition to that, we have a treaty obligation to the country of Mexico to deliver 1.5 million acre feet of river water to them. And the federal government runs all of the big reservoirs on the river. So you have 7 states, each of which has a gubernatorial appointee to negotiate, and I'm Nevada's. Then you have the federal government through the Bureau of Reclamation and Department of Interior, sort of at the table as owners of the infrastructure. Obviously, 30, I think, Native American tribes, big, important national areas like the Grand Canyon, a lot of wildlife and recreational interests, and then a international treaty right in the middle of it. And it's a river that is relatively small, compared to the Mississippi or the Columbia. The Colorado is a really small river, and we call it the hardest working river in the world because it takes care of 40 million people, 5 million acres of irrigated agriculture, the 5th largest economy in the world. If the 7 states that share the river were an independent country, we'd have an economy bigger than Great Britain. So it's of national importance. If your residents on Long Island eat salad during the winter, it's 95% chance it's coming from Yuma, Arizona, and being grown with Colorado River water. So it's a river system that's of national and international importance, and the people that work on it have to figure out ways to compromise. Right there is no way one state can just win over another one and not have enough water for huge chunks of the U.S. population.
I understand that there's been an update in a most recent agreement. Can you fill us in on the specifics?
Yeah, so right at the end of May, the states and water users within the states of Nevada, Arizona, and California agreed to a 4-year conservation program, which will be the largest water conservation program ever effectuated, once we fully implement it. The goal is to save 3 million acre feet of water, which, just for context, that's over 10 times the total consumption of Las Vegas for 1 year. Leave that water in Lake Mead and start rebuilding the storage that we've lost on the Colorado rivers. So an important program. I think it continues to show that there is the political will to do hard things on the interstate level on the Colorado. So we look forward to getting back to the negotiating table and see what's next.
So I've said this for a long time at cocktail parties and barbecues that wars are going to be fought over water, over having water, water quality and water quantity, and we've seen that over the last couple of decades, certainly historically, but I think that has certainly intensified where there are battles and lawsuits related to beyond what you're going through, certainly in the West, but not only in the domestic United States, but across the planet. Do you have any advice for the people here in New York and Long Island who get get their drinking water from an aquifer. Any tips, advice that we can pass along, and good, maybe best practices and things like that?
It sounds simple, but, you got to plan ahead. You have to, be realistic about how much water you have, how big of a population, at what, per capita water usage, will that support, and take the steps necessary. It sounds like with your tiered rates, we have a 5-tier rate system here, so we're, a little more aggressive in that sense than you guys are. But, water, isn't a given. It's a finite resource, and it's not federal fiscal policy where you can just print more, right? It's something where, you're going to have to, actually live within your means. And frankly, Americans aren't always great at facing up to the hard realities of living within their means sometimes, and water's an unforgiving mistress in that regard.
John Entsminger, thank you so much for your time today. We very much appreciate your thoughts on drought and drinking water conservation. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great, Jeff. Really enjoyed it.
We'll see you really soon. What About Water is produced by Jeff Sabo, Theodore Aponte, and Dan Dubois. If you enjoyed What About Water, be sure to rate us and to leave a review. Help spread the word by telling a friend and by following the Suffolk County Water Authority on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm Jeff Sabo.